Hello, hola community. How are you? Welcome to another episode of Blender Today, live streaming from the Blender studio, Blender HQ here in Amsterdam. But today, I'm not alone. I have a guest to share some of the new additions that the Blender studio had in the last few years. It's not just developers. Developers need other developers. There are developers community. There are people that have to maybe like organize the amount of contributions out there. So it's super cool that Blender Foundation is hiring someone. It's actually someone that it's an old friend of Blender, has been contributing to the code to the past, but now it's more towards helping other developers to contribute. Right? I don't know. We're gonna find out in a bit. Say hi and welcome to Thomas Dinges. Hey, wait, wait, here. Oi!
Hi,
Hello, Thomas. How are you? Yeah, how's it going?
I'm fine, thanks. Great to be on Blender today.
First time. First time.
Yeah, first time.
Wow.
The format wasn't there when I was still active a few years ago, so yeah.
It was, yeah, wow. It's few years ago. Let's get that out of the way. So I think it's a bit more than a few years ago. Some people already know you actually from the from contributions to Cycle, some UI stuff too, right? In the
Yeah,
past.
yeah. During the 2.5 days, yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Awesome.
guess I can simply introduce myself in a few sentences.
Yes.
So I think I started using Blender in 2007, so that's like 13, 14 years already. That's like, wow. So in the beginning, I just wanted to make art, but I quickly found out that I don't have real the knowledge and the creativity. And so I think I installed Blender and removed it again once and twice. And it took me a bit to really start my first tutorial and really uh, try to actually do something with it. I think it was a little gingerbread guy from the old wiki books or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was super proud of it, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so exciting!" And yeah, later on, I became interested in in how Blender is actually working and how the community is doing, and I basically started by helping Ton a bit with the website and do some stuff on the wiki. And yeah, later on, it was simple bug fixes, and especially with the 2.5, the Blender 2.5 UI project, I worked on the interface layouts there in the beginning 2009, 2010. And then when Brecht introduced cycles in 2011, I got all hyped up and started contributing to cycles. And yeah, that was basically my main task for 5 years, from 2011 to 16 roughly. I got free Google Sum of Code grants and worked on various things like shading nodes and performance optimizations, but also image and memory optimizations in 2016. That was my last summer of code project. And yeah, then it became a bit silent around me. I was busy with other things. I started my own photography business, for example, and was also busy with university still. And yeah, but this year Ton asked me if I want to come back, and so here I am. And today I'm working as developer community coordinator for Blender, and that's super fun. But I guess I will talk a bit more about that in a second.
Yeah. Wow. I completely forgot about the Summer of Code. That's so cool. Summer of Code brings so many talents to Blender. Yeah. So before we continue, actually, this is a regular Blender Today show. We're gonna show what's new in Blender in a bit. But I think it's good to introduce you to know that. So what can people expect from you as developers, mainly developers that want to
Mhm.
get their contributions? So what is the role that Ton said is, okay, we need someone to.
Yeah, so basically, my main role is to help new contributors with onboarding. So, people who are new to the project and want to contribute to code, documentation, or help with bug fixes, and so on. And yeah, basically, there's so many things that can be done and can be improved. And I think the main task here for me is just to be around, be present, and be available to people, so that I can walk people around and show them, point them to the resources that we have on the wiki and the chat rooms and the developer forums, but also help them get involved and get them started, compile Blender, and get connected with developers and module teams, so they can reach out to everyone and start contributing. And so basically in the last few weeks I also worked a bit on trying to figure out how the current status is and what can be improved possibly. And there are certain things I want to work on. For example, the patch review process. We have so many patches open in the tracker, and there are certain things that can be done to improve it, to review code faster, but also for contributors to submit better patches in the first place and make it more, so basically helping around. And
I think often it's not only about features, it's also about about managing this entire list of contributions by everyone, myself included. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a burden to like, okay, I would like to contribute this feature, but I don't know enough. So it's sometimes it feels like developers have to be there and fixing, giving feedback, and it's a great learning opportunity for a noob developer or starting to develop. But on the other hand, you don't know who could be the next, Jack, Luke, or Brecht that is there in here contributing their first patches. So
absolutely.
It's super important to have a role like yours.
Yeah. And I think it's also because the way how Blender developed in the past few years, which I'm super excited about. Even though I wasn't active, I was always following the news and seeing all the companies that supporting Blender these days on the developer fund, for example, and more studios making art and films with Blender, which is amazing. And so basically the project structure changed a bit. When I was starting, then basically we had 2 or 3 developers maybe who were hired by the Blender Institute, and everyone else was just a volunteer like myself back then. And today we have people working at the Blender Institute in Amsterdam, people working from home, people working from the community, volunteers, but also people from companies who contribute code to Blender. So there's a lot more need for people like me to coordinate all that and make sure that everyone is connected well and that everyone can work as good as possible. And so I think that's really important.
It is. This is so much fun, actually. Let's just going through some of the patches, and then you find some. I'm getting out of the topic of today, so let's see. Let's move into what's new in Blender, and maybe we can just chat in between news or features. We last week we covered we had a super packed episode with all the features from before Blender 3.0 moved into beta and the first week of beta-ish. This week is completely Blender is fully in beta for the entire past week, almost Wednesday, plus today, and there is some new things in 3.1 already, but I think it's mostly 3.0. If I remember, I'm gonna mention, I think now all the cycles that we're gonna start covering the cycles features, and they are only, I think, in 3.0 beta. But now the line is blurred, and if you're watching this, you're probably just use master all the time. So okay, so time to get started. Let's see the cycles changes of this week. I remember when we were started setting up this live stream, you said like, oh, but I'm a bit out of the loop with some of the latest cycles X changes. Same here. I just rely on developers writing nice blog posts about or at least giving the numbers, and they are usually so cool to do that. For example, here I just scan for numbers. Some of the changes I know that they are they've been working for a while. But for example, I like to mention if there is a performance update, that there is a number. These numbers, it's difficult to make them like general, because you have very different use cases. Sometimes improvements are for like faster hair rendering, faster transparency, faster volume rendering. This one in particular is called decouple shadow paths from main path on GPU. This one has two benefits actually. First, one of them is performance. It's just faster. It's 5 to 10% faster on most benchmark scenes. So the architecture scenes or hair rendering, it's usually faster, but also it helps to bring back transparency support for the ambient occlusion pass. So super good for compositing. This was lost in the process. Now it's back. So it's cool when you have a bit of both. You have an improvement in performance plus some feature that comes back, such as baked transparent shadows for hair. What does it mean? Well, performance improvements. So this, I couldn't find exact numbers, but in here, for the benchmarks, they're all pretty different. The one that I know the most is Koro, which is 24% in render mind reduction. And I am extremely happy to read this, because this is a character that has a whole lot of small transparent hairs, which are a nightmare. And they used to be a nightmare when we rendered these on cycles in 2013 or so. It was a nightmare. Now it's not. Even faster in Spring, the main character from Spring Open Movie Project, 73% reduction in render time compared to Master. While using 128 by 128 tiles, it's about 3 times faster than 293. So that fixes the regression. Yeah, at some point it was slower, so now it is faster than 293. That's insane. 3 times faster than 293. 73% reduction time. Compared to Master, compared to what was already fast. So this is Cycles X faster.
That's amazing, yeah. So basically, in general, Cycles X is a new architecture that mainly Brecht and Sergey worked on. And it especially helps with GPUs. I think it made it like 5 to 7 times faster on GPUs, so it's really more responsive and faster. But there are still so many benefits of this change, which result in those commits like the one you have on the screen right now, that there are so many other possible improvements that still can be made, also for the CPU later on in the future release. So it really helps, and it's nice to see all those things add up together. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what people do with 3.0 and 3.1 later then. And but I mean, that's the problem with productions, you know. You make it faster and people throw more geometry and more lights and everything.
Yeah, you find a way to make it slower. You would imagine that if you re-render Caminandes from 2013, now it's gonna be super fast, much faster. But even in the same hardware as back then. However, you want to add more things to it. So you always end up, render times don't even get that much faster unless because you keep making things more complex. But in this commit, what I like in particular is that Cycles X was already faster. And now, I read a lot of comments online saying like, okay, this is awesome, but we know that it's lacking features, so it's gonna get slower by the time those features are added back to Cycles, to become Cycles. So Cycles X into Cycles. But this is proving it wrong. There is a lot more room for improvement, and it's even faster than when Cycles X came out. That's amazing. Such as the next feature. So this is baked transparent shadows for hair. Of course, the characters with a lot of hair, where it will render faster. In this one, more accurately count main paths for adding work tiles. What does it mean? It doesn't help in a benchmark scene except Spring. So this one, for some reason, the Spring scene gets speed up. So Spring is the one that she's running with the dog, right? I think the demo files that everybody can test. This one. Yeah. So there's yeah, so this one has a lot of hair and a field of grass. So this use case is much faster now to render by 2 or 3%, on top of the 74% in the previous commit. That's just awesome. Okay, so the commit that we saw before that will make render 5 to 10 times fast percent, not times, percent faster, and it would also help the ambient occlusion. It is right here. Make ambient occlusion pass take into account transparency again. So yeah, taking advantage of the new decouple main and shadow paths. The next change has to do with shadows, shadow compaction for GPU rendering. How much faster? Well, some cases it's actually slower. It's like 1.5% slower, but in most cases it should have, I think it's memory performance improvement, similar to main path compaction that happens before adding work tiles. These compact shadows paths before launching kernels that may add shadow paths. So not all changes bring performance up, but they bring accuracy up, such as more accuracy, volume stack size calculation. How much memory performance can you get improvement in this one? Well, in an RTX 6000 card, the test gives it an improvement from 1.4 or 1400 megabytes maybe to 1000. So lower memory means you can fit in more stuff in your rendering. Not it's all about memory and speed up. There is also the render pass is not anti-alias anymore, such as the depth pass, for example. So that way, actually, it turns out that the values between far and near objects, if it was interpolated or anti-aliased, it wouldn't be very correct. So yay for this. I guess the anti-aliasing, you do it at the end manually. You would perform it in this case.
Yeah, I guess you can do it with the compositor or in another way, but I guess we had these discussions for a long time, I think, and it's always that, especially those data passes, they are not correct with anti-aliasing, so there can be some issues. So that's why it was changed to not anti-aliased, because then it's more accurate and
you get the real values, especially for position you need. Otherwise, it would if you use that position map pass to map a texture, for example, it will flicker. You don't want that. So I'm super happy that there is a position pass again. Well, for the first time, there is no more need to have to make that hack of adding a shader, position shader, and yeah, no more. What else? Oh, ambient occlusion. Add additive support through FastGI settings. Now you have actually I can show, is there a picture? No. But actually this one we can show. It's just a drop down basically that in the in cycles, I have cycles disabled because I compiled the Blender Lite. So in cycles in the FastGI panel, which is in light paths, FastGI approximation. Now you can change the method from replace to add. So replace gives you the bounces that you can choose. You can limit them per viewport of the render, and this one just adds it. So I guess it just takes the bounces that are already there and just adds them with a factor and with a distance. This was available back, I remember, from Blender internal. You could do adding and replacing. I remember I didn't know the difference back then. Just choose whatever works best. I think when you work with a path tracer, it's much different. Okay, and the last two changes is distance scrambling, also known as faster rendering. I don't know exactly how much faster. There's some mentions of twice as fast.
Yeah, so I guess it really depends on the scene, but there have been some examples also in the patch that showed that it can make certain renders quite faster. But I haven't tested it yet myself, so I cannot really say much more about this, but it's definitely
Okay,
something
here
that people can try out.
we found the number. So the overall performance, this is for PMG, for multi-jitter. The overall performance boost offered by this patch is about 1.45 times faster rendering on a dark interior, and the dark interior is this. So this should render 1.45, so almost 1.5 times faster. Very welcome. At the cost of what? In this case, you get accuracy.
I guess it's mainly accuracy, yeah, but it shouldn't make the render look wrong. It's just, I guess it's more like how the samples are distributed. But again, I cannot really add more to this, unfortunately. The interesting thing about this is also that it's based on a paper, which is also linked there, the micro jittering paper. And the people who wrote that paper, they also tested it with Blender cycles when they did it. So I think it's on the 3rd page or something. We implemented the 3rd point. We implemented the micro jittering approach to an in-house GPU path tracer and a modified version of Blender cycles. So when they wrote that paper, they were also already testing it with cycles. So it's nice to see something that's already been in a paper now in cycles available to anybody. That's
like,
quite cool.
People are changing cycles or Blender itself just to try their patches, which I guess is like real world scenario. It's easier to load the files, but also it's easier to find, maybe to not have like the real truth of what you're testing, because there's so many variables, so many changes and little settings in Blender that can affect it, that it's very welcome when this happens. Wow. Okay, so super neat. Welcome. 1.5 times faster, sometimes even more, sometimes even less. That is super welcome. So it is really the cycles X faster, cycles just faster. This this will be part of 3.0, yeah, because it was added before Beacon 3, so this is part of 3.0. Right. That's insane. Like the render difference, it's just gonna be crazy. Such as the nodes are crazy. So in this case, let's talk about a little bit about geometry nodes. There's a few changes. There is a new added support. There's no new nodes, but there are settings in the nodes that are new. So let's jump into geometry nodes. The actually, this has I've seen it as a right-click select request, but it was just missing support. The volumes were missing support for set material. So now, thanks to Hans here, brought it back and it works. So yeah, even though volumes can only have one material, still necessary to allow assigning a material to a procedural created volume. I'm even gonna give you a warning when a non-constant selection is added. So yay for that. Speaking of volumes, in the spreadsheet, when you are previewing, when you have a viewer connected to it, in volume grids, you're gonna see the grid name, the type, and the class. So there is a new, this is getting pretty crowded here, the tree. All types of info are there. Volume grids show the name of each grid, the data type, if it's float, a vector, and the class. Fog volume, level set, or unknown. So I'm curious what people are going to be doing with this. And because we are in November, so November is happening. I wonder if by the end of November there will be new features that people are going to be using, and if that is illegal or not.
Yeah, probably. I think I already saw a commit where someone fixed something that was seen on a live stream from Simon, I think, from the Blender Studio. So definitely, it always helps to have people use the features and do all kinds of crazy things with it. And it's just amazing what people create this time in November. But I guess it's also because it's more generic this time. So the topics are like 2-sided, 3-sided, 4-sided for the last few days. So you could just
right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, Simon is live streaming. He started like at 3 p.m. He's still
Yeah.
live streaming. So from the studio right now, I think we're even like in the top of on top of where he is recording right now. So we are doing 2 live streams from the Blender HQ at the moment. You can't complain. You want development, you get Blender Today. You want artwork, you get Simon doing crazy stuff with geometry nodes today and tomorrow. He's also gonna be streaming tomorrow. So yeah, I'm happy that the Blender stream is holding up. So the Blender internet is holding up, and I think we're gonna get even faster soon. This part of Amsterdam wasn't getting the fastest internet, so we were a bit worried. Not anymore. Okay. More improvements. This one is I know that it's already around for a while. The resampled curves node now has a selection input field. I would imagine. Yes, there you go. So you can resample and you can give it a selection. So you can choose which parts or which, yeah, if you give it an ID, for example, you can choose which IDs, which points of the curve are gonna be resampled or not. So super cool. Yeah, per spline selection input field to determine which splines will be resampled, not points. I always mix them up. Speaking of point, well, no, this is not really points. It's just UI, user interface, right? So welcome. So thank you, Nikhil Sringarpure, for adding tooltips. You know, we have support for socket tooltips since like a month or so, not really long ago. So these kind of additions are very welcome. This doesn't require like for you to have 5 PhDs, and it adds a ton of usability improvements, quality of life improvements. It's not the most elegant thing, but the fact that someone takes care of doing it, super nice.
Yeah, it's really important to have these, and as I mentioned before, I also started, I think my first patch was like fixing links to the Blender websites who were a bit outdated. So it's of course important to have people who can fix those little things and add tooltips or fix like links or something, or fix typos in a tooltip or whatever. That's important, and also it's good because people then have a very fast patch they can contribute, and they don't really need much knowledge. They just need to download the source code and take a look and fix the text, and it's easy and nice to get started, and then they see their work in Blender and they made a real change. So that can be really motivating, and I can only recommend everyone taking a look at those simple things in the beginning instead of starting with a huge project that may be more difficult and maybe end up being frustrating. So I can highly recommend that. Get started with some easy things.
It's a good way really to get into the code, right?
Because
absolutely. The line is a bit high, the bar is a bit high because you have to learn how to compile Blender. So, but learning how to do it, I made a video, I think, on this Blender developers channel, and it takes really no time. It's just you set it up once and then it just stays working. So it is a good exercise, and then changes like this add a lot. They help documentation, they help Blender reach more people, make it more friendly, and you get to be part of Blender forever. Your code. Okay, speaking of selections, the cone and the cylinder nodes now have outputs that give you a pre-selection, so you don't have to do weird math to get the top part of the cylinder or the side part or the bottom part. It is so awesome. Let's see it in action. There was a here. So this blend file, as you can see, it's just just a cylinder that has 3 materials, and the materials are applied based on the output of the cone. So you have top, bottom, side. So cool, so cool. So you see the top gets red, selection blue at the bottom, and the sides. So nice. Thanks for the Nice example heading also. And the blend file. The other node that got an update is the curve parameter node. Now there is an output for the length of the curve. So we can, maybe I can just parameter. There you go. It's you had a factor before, and now you have the length of the curve. The last change, well, this is not a feature, it's a bug fix, but I think it's worth mentioning because you may have run into the issue of having the stats in the viewport show nothing. It's like 0, 0, 0, and you try to understand why there are vertices here. Well, now this has been fixed, so it's going to show the proper number for the real mesh, not for the instances, right? You have 8 vertices, so it's 8. Yeah, would be cool to have maybe instances, so you can see the amount of you can get that in the spreadsheet though. And that is all for the node editor. Actually, we can. Have you played with nodes? Have you stayed up to date with the geometry nodes?
I played a bit around with it, but seeing what, for example, Simon is doing is just pure magic to me. So, yeah. But it's really nice to see those ways of procedural modeling and how it can influence things. And it's a whole new way of modeling, and you can do all kinds of things with it. So I guess users are always looking up to developers saying like they are doing magic, but I can only throw the ball back. What users and artists are doing is magic as well. So just wow.
Yes, that's a good point. To me, the most amazing thing about geometry nodes is the amount of contributors from the community that it's bringing. Like the trying to find here some, like for example, we had Guitar Geek, we had Charlie Jolie, we have Jared, we have Eric. We like the amount of people that joined this project is crazy. So nice to see this.
Yeah. And it's I think that also depends on the code, because even always when a feature is new and it's easy to get in, for example, adding a new node, you can take an existing commit and take a look how it has been done and just replicate it, and you can get results pretty quickly. And that's always great with new features. So yeah, it brings indeed a lot of new contributors, and it's great to see all these new changes and new nodes.
It is, and it's not only nodes, because in the next topic where we talk about the user interface, and it's related to geometry nodes, this contributor Omar Squilco Art has fixed it's more like a fix and a support for the colored wires that have been introduced in 3.0 recently, a few weeks ago. Well, now the colors here were coming from built-in Blender just color sets. The issue was that there are add-ons that have their own colors, that have their own sockets that they draw. Now, I don't have a animation nodes, for example, here, but in the commit mentions that the links will draw with the color of the socket. So it even supports if you have animation nodes or Svarshok or other node, any add-on that makes their own socket colors, it's gonna work properly. So you see, contributions by the community. Thank you, Omar, for working on this. Another one. Okay, this one is not a community contribution. Philip is working for Blender. He's working all across the board. It's testing bugs, but also adding features, and it's nice. It's refreshing to see this. And this feature, it's a quality of life improvement that I didn't know I needed until I saw it. So have you ever noticed how when animating values inside of nodes, you had, well, pretty much no information. You had the factor. It says, for example, FAC, because you animated that, but you didn't know where was it coming from. Not anymore. Now, here in the dope sheet, you're gonna see the name of the node hey, this is color balance. This is hue saturation value. So there are more improvements to come. Right now, this is taking the name and not the label. So if you rename your node, well, you change the label, yeah, it's not gonna, there's a performance there issue that it's gonna take the name. So just rename. For people that don't know what I'm talking about, is the name and the label. It's a bit overlapping because you can rename, but you can add a label. So the label doesn't show up there. It's a bit confusing, gotta be honest. Okay, let's continue. The other change is another quality of life improvement. So when you are dragging a material, for example, but you are not in object mode, like if you're in edit mode or any other mode, now it's gonna give you a little hint about why it's not working. Then speaking of dragging, when dragging text onto buttons, this has been refactored. So it's from the user point of view, you shouldn't see well, more than just a more descriptive error maybe, but this opens the door for dragging and dropping data blocks onto like input fields or search menu. So I'm pretty excited about this in the future, what it's gonna bring, this refactor. And last but not least, the video sequence editor got a change that it makes it so, like, this is how it used to be in the past. The grid was drawn, it's a theme setting, and it was drawn for horizontal lines, separators between the channels, and the vertical indicators. And that has, yeah, it was a bit confusing because you wanted to maybe make this lighter. So now the horizontal lines are gone, and this matches the outliner, the file browser, the NLA, the animation editors. It matches the rest of Blender basically. And the vertical lines are used only for the time indicators. So it should be more clear. So you see only vertical lines now. And the vertical lines, actually, when you have it in seconds, they don't really make a lot of sense until you go by frames. And they are like 5, 10, 15, 20. I think this could be improved. Like when you're in seconds, you could be displaying a different time. Like every second, every half second. It has to read the FPS though, so it's a bit tricky. I think that's it. I think I covered pretty much the user interface. We have a few more sections. How much time we have? Okay, plenty of time. Plenty. Sorry if I'm speaking too much. Just feel free to add a... In Spanish we say a byte, like when you have to add a little comment there.
It's just nice how you present all these features here visually, because one of my tasks now is also to take care of the weekly report that we send to the Dev Talk forum, for example, so people can go there and just have a list of all the features that have been added during last week. So if you prefer text, you can check that out. And if you prefer visuals, then go on the live stream with Pablo.
Yeah, Blender.Today. All right, and we even have more things this week. The Grease Pencil team has been adding a couple of features this week. One, it's an improvement on an existing operator. It's called merge all. So in Grease Pencil, you can already merge down layers. So the active layer will merge with the bottom one. Now you can merge all of the layers into the active one. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much to it. I think if you go to the diff, to the actual code, it's gonna say flatten because this was the proposed name before, but I think it's flatten in Blender. It means something else, so I think that's why the name was changed to merge all. Sometimes if you're looking into these patches, maybe the image was outdated, so yeah, don't take this image as finals. Usually the ones that are in patches, sometimes it's just the developer forgot to update it. Just a heads up. I am also guilty about that of having one change that I didn't I update the image. Another update, export full scene. Now you can export the grease pencil scene as a PDF with the entire range of the scene. It used to be limited to the active frame or the selected frame. So you have to like select everything, select all, and then export. Not anymore. Now you have a setting in the export options box. It's not even a panel. This should be a box in the add-on, in the exporter. And last but not least, performance improvements in the case of, for example, when you are using the eraser. Now let's see, there is even a picture. It's hard to know how much faster it is. So here Germano made these short videos. So this is without the improvement. You're gonna see the lag while dragging, like click. Yeah, super laggy. And I think it's hard to see, but you can see that the button is pressed now, and then yeah. But now it's just instant. Yeah. There is another video too, but it's just more of the same. It just takes longer to calculate. Not anymore. Okay. Another topic, Rigify. More like Rigify. This is an add-on, but it's an official add-on inside of Blender. I think it should even be on by default. If it doesn't make any... If it doesn't add any noise, I think Rigify should be on by default. Such a... Yeah, it's probably the only way to build a, a biped or a quadruped without going crazy from scratch. Rigify operators. There is now 2 new operators, one for copying and one for mirroring parameters. One of them is the copy parameters to selected, which works just like in the rest of Blender, where you can right click on a setting and copy to the selected objects. And mirror, it's just that. It flips them to the other side. Okay, speaking of add-ons, that, well, this is a blurred line between official add-ons that come with Blender but maybe not on by default. The VR or XR side of Blender is getting improved so much. This one, navigation. This is the this command adds navigation transforms like pose and scale to the XR session state, but that will be applied to the viewer control poses. So yeah, navigation controls. Which kind of navigation control? Well, you have the raycast base teleport, and you have the grab navigation. So you're probably familiar if you do you do any VR at home? Do you have a VR headset?
No, I just tested an Oculus, I think, once at a Blender conference, but don't have my own.
Wow. Well, raycast is one that usually you just like point to a place and you teleport places. Mm-hmm. I think VR chat has something like that. And then there is the grab. You just pull and grab yourself, and look, you can move around. The ISS has an app in the Oculus Quest that you have to navigate around, and you do that kind of pulling. You have to grab on the sides and then you pull yourself, and it's so trippy. It's awesome. So yeah, and the fly navigation. So 3 types of navigation in VR. We should do some kind of video or stream or something using these settings, because I haven't seen anyone yet, and this looks so promising. Not only you can navigate now with 3 types, you can also see your controllers, or if you are making an add-on, you can make your own controllers and use them. By default, it's gonna fall back to just a little sphere, but I think there is an image. Yes. So you have a preview of the camera in VR, and then you have these 2 little spheres that are where the controllers will be. So super neat. But you can have your own. I think it's gonna draw a few for the ones that are supported, and the ones that are not supported is gonna have a sphere, something like that. I wish we would see more of this on. Maybe there is on Twitter. I don't follow like a. Maybe there is a hashtag for Blender VR, or let's make it happen. B3D VR or something like that. I want to see what people are doing with this. I think that covers the VR sector. We have a bunch of in the potpourri section. So this is just a quick, everything fits in this section. For example, there, this knife, the knife tool. Now the right clicked is cancel. It doesn't cancel the entire the entire cuts. It's just for example, this patch allows right click cancel when no cuts have been made. So you can, before even cutting, you can cancel. It makes it consistent with other tools when switching between them. Thumbnails, refactor extraction to use one code for all platforms. Oh yeah, this is just mainly for sharing code between thumbnails of Linux and Windows. So less, if you had issues with the thumbnailing, this should fix it. Changes in the name of view layers. You may have noticed, if you have been paying attention, that when you create a new view layer, now it's no longer called 0.001. Now it's underscore 001 or 2 or 3. That is a change because in OpenEXR, the dot separator means something else. The naming convention in OpenEXR is for layer dot pass dot channel. So in order to not conflict with that, view layers have underscores now. The same is gonna happen for the AOV passes in cycles or EV. Now instead of the dot, it's gonna have the underscore separator. Okay, this one. People that do not use Blender in English, that use your own locale. Well, on Mac, there has been a bug report since a long time, and the patch is like, you can see all the reports and all the like, I love this thread. It's well, love it. It's so interesting to see how people go through the trouble of, you know, so many people involved, like reporting, getting back, maybe it's this, okay, changing the code, going back. This just awesome. The amount of patience to get this fixed. Long story short, if you use Blender in not in English on a Mac, it could crash. Not anymore. It's fixed. So celebrate. All right, next. Cycles black pixels were rendering more than 65,000 samples. Well, if you run into that issue, it has been solved. Very unlikely, but hey, you can render now. We can flex that Blender renders more than 65,000 samples in cycles. Just fine. Speaking of cycles, there was an issue that if optics wasn't available, the denoiser wouldn't fall back to OpenImage denoiser. So if you had issues with that, it's worth mentioning. If you had issues with the denoiser, that should be fixed already for over a week. And the last but not least, this was super fun, but it's also a nightmare too. This was a nightmare. It's a bug report I did. It was so weird. Basically, it meant that if the 3D viewport was getting some theme settings from the editor underneath, like the one below. So weird. If you had issues with the theme, has been fixed. And that's all. I think it was just so weird that I wanted to mention it. Okay, so I think that covers all of the new features in here. We did start it a bit later, so are you up for some questions from the community?
Sure.
Usually they are pretty easy to answer. Some of them are harder, but having a developer that is involved, seeing the patches, seeing the life of patches is usually a very good thing. Such as the first question. Look at that, there is a new badge. BGT actually is a Sprite Fright Open Movie supporter. Now they have their own little patch. So I'm gonna move us aside. So, okay, there. Now, So yeah, you should see, actually, if you log in with Blender and comment here, you should see your Sprite support badge. Hi Pablo and Thomas. I would like to ask about features stuck a bit in experimental limbo. What are the plans for them? For example, adaptive subdivision. If the software expects from me to enable experimental mode for some feature, it suggests instability and other features. Not finished. Use at your own risk. But it's there for quite some time, and I'm wondering if you'll get out of status at some point.
Yeah, that's difficult. So adaptive subdivision has been added quite some years ago, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
And the thing is that it always depends a bit on people available, especially when you get contributions from the community. But that's not exclusive to people from the community, of course. It's also applying to people who are working for the Blender Institute. Things get added, and there's some initial state, but there are some missing things or some to-dos that need to be solved until it can be enabled in a broader way. And that's when we put something under the experimental flag to emphasize that it's not finished, that there can be changes in the future, and that it might crash still or something like that. So just to make people aware to not trust and rely on it too much, basically. But yeah, it's of course a valid question to ask when these features come out of experimental, but that's as always a matter of time and priorities, and we do our best to finish those things, but sometimes it just takes a bit of time.
Yeah, or it conflicts with the roadmap, for example. But yeah, this one has been around for so long that I guess sometimes it happens that just maybe people forget. It happens, especially developers that work on areas that are not even close to this. Next question by Mike. Will Blender ever have Eevee, ever have SSGI? The answer is yes. And that's it. Eevee is getting a refactor next year for Eevee 2.0. That's a 2.0 project. And one of the topics is, it's the refactor starts next year. It's like Cycles X. It's gonna take years until the entire Eevee gets moved into like Vulkan and make use of all the new technology and improve over what is already existing there. So I'm saying years from now. I don't wanna be.
Yeah, I think there is already a rewrite branch. I think.
Yeah, Eevee
I'm not
rewrite.
sure. Yeah, so it's being worked on, but it will still take a bit of time. Yeah.
There is also this crazy bug. Have you ever seen it yet? I think I just got rickrolled. And we're well done. Thank you, Mike. I think I've never got rickrolled in public before. I hope it doesn't become a thing. All right, Escopelma says, look, if I would have watched I know, because it's not, I know the URL of the original rickroll, just not this one. So, damn. Okay, Scopelma asks, hey Pablo and Thomas, hope you are doing well. Do you know if there are any plans to change how the end panel works? Currently, if you have some extensions, at a certain point the text cuts off and becomes unreadable. It is really hard to use sometimes. Thank you. And yeah, well, there are plans on how to fix. The problem is that it's not an easy task, apparently, to change this, is what you mean. That when you zoom in, this happens. Yeah, I think everybody agrees that this is not the way it should look. It's just that it requires quite some work, apparently, from what I heard from the developers. It's not an easy task, and there are also many solutions. The one of them is to get rid of this toolbar and just have the like a drop down here, or like a UI list, for example, and you could just basically like select from each tab, but select it like this, and then you can also search if you wanted to. I don't know. It's there are patches and there are ideas. It just needs developers to yeah, to want to tackle that. We're aware though. I would say 3.x series. If we get rid of most of the issues in the first 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, 3.x. Next question. Slug Nugget says, "Hey Thomas, what was your last commit?"
Yeah, so I did some bug fixes last week, and they were mostly related to the presets. So you can have presets like for different camera sizes or resolutions and stuff like that. And there were some issues causing presets not to be saved. But I plan to do more advanced features again in the future. But again, I still have to take a look at all the Cycles X changes and get familiar with it again. But then you will see hopefully more exciting changes in the future. Absolutely.
Yay. Spire Dark says, "Hey Paulo, how are you? I hope your UI branch changes could be implemented in 3.0. Well, good news. Actually, most of it has been implemented in 3.0. What you see here, the panels that look like panels, that was from my branch. The rounded corners on the items also got in. These little chevron icons in the here is also got in. Plenty actually. The drag and dropping elements, the tooltip when you can drag and drop also. So most of it is here. There is a few changes that I couldn't manage to get in. One of them, actually the reason why I started making a new branch was to have these buttons look different from the buttons that support multiple options. So yeah, that was the only one. For example, this you can have all three on, but this you can't. This is exclusive, and I think they should look different. I made a mockup, I made a patch, but there were issues in it, so I didn't make it in 3.0. Hopefully 3.1 or 3.2, but 3.1 for sure, I think. Okay, there are some quality of life improvements, like some important experimental features. Adaptive subdivision are still to be finalized. Watch a few minutes before. Add-ons like Node Wrangler, Loop Tools, Curve Tools, Magic UV, and etc., which are important to the workflow, to be written in C or C++ and internalized as a core feature. Well, not all of them. There are some features that they don't really need to be in C or C++. They can be in Python, as long as they don't rely on like heavy computational power or multi-threading. In that case, some can stay as add-ons. I think the Node Wrangler has many features that are super good to have internally in Blender without having to enable the Wrangler add-on. But there are also other features that I don't think they will benefit most of people, or maybe they just add, they just add a lot of, not noise, but maybe noise. For example, like the Node Wrangler has all these features here that maybe they don't really serve everyone, and it's good to have a add-on that can go a bit more experimental and test features there before they are moved into regular Blender. But also, for example, the Node Wrangler Ctrl-Shift-Click to make to have a, for example, if I have two, I want to make it so it gets, there you go, the viewer. So to preview some changes with the Node Wrangler, it adds a viewer, which is actually an emission node. This should be in Blender, I guess. It's a bit of a hack, but this should be in Blender, the viewer node. And 3.0, there are some improvements are made in regards of modeling tools, but still there are some problems. The option menu in the editor and option menu in F9 keep floating around. They are not in sync. An option menu in the editor cannot be used after the tool use, plus the editor is lacking some options pre-tools use. I'm gonna need a screenshot for that, sorry. I think I know more or less what you mean, but there's a number of questions. Next one, modifiers cannot be applied in other modes than object mode, even though you can use multi-resolution modifier in sculpt mode. Yeah, I think that is a per modifier change that has to be tackled, right? Or because they are in object mode, Thomas?
Sorry?
That the modifiers cannot be applied in other modes than in object mode. That is because all modifiers belong in object level, right?
Yeah, I think that's the reason, yeah. But also it's those things haven't changed really in the last few years. So I think it's also planned to move more towards nodes. So I don't think we will see many more changes there, I guess. But yeah, I cannot really comment on that. So I don't know it, unfortunately, what is being planned for modifiers.
For modifiers. Personal opinion, every LTS should be a whole number release, like 3.0, 4.0. No, because every the idea is to have a new LTS release every year, and each one to last for 2 years. So that would mean that Blender will change from 3.4.5 every year, and that is a bit too much. I think the 3.0 series is gonna be very interesting to make a lot of refactors and improvements, like Eevee refactor, Cycles X was in there, but you need to give it some time for the features to settle, and also to give some room for what 4.0 could bring. You know, making a big release every year just doesn't help. We already have 4 releases every year. So 4.0, it's gonna come, I think, after 3.7. The plan is 3.1, 2, 3. 4 is the LTS, I think. And then 5, 6, 7. And 7 is the LTS. I think LTS is gonna be the release prior to a big release. So 293 is an LTS. 3.0 is not. That's what 3.0, yeah, exactly. I think that maybe that's the argument. LTS should not be a major release, a major big number, because that's when you take the most of the risks. So LTS should be as stable as possible. That means being mature. End key shortcuts menu should be removed, and options like, what do you mean end key shortcuts? And
maybe
options
means
like
panel, the entire
like
panel.
the end panel. What
yeah.
do you mean? It doesn't. Well, I mean, could be something else, but so handy. Option like lock camera to frame should be an icon. Yeah, but where? And at some point it was added in the viewport here, but they didn't really belong here, because these are because the lock camera to panel actually changes data inside of the camera. Like, you can mess up your things, while this only changes the view. So they need a new room or a different type of icon. There should be a separate tab in options menu for geometry nodes and add-on management. I don't know what you mean. Like textures and simulation tabs. Blender Founder should hire someone to Foundations to improve texture painting in Blender, like the guy who developed Armor Paint, and add inbuilt option to make circles, square, and grid masks for easier material creation in Blender. That is super open. But yeah, no, I think if the developer that made, for example, Armory Paint would have wanted to make it in Blender, it would have just go ahead and done it, right? And that should be, like, Blender is open source. You could have implemented it in Blender, and that would maybe show the commitment into making it happen in Blender. For example, the AppBGE people are working, it's Blender with a game engine, so that shows really commitment that they really want to keep it Blender, but just add a game engine on top of it. So it's a different type of commitment. It's a personal opinion, though. Okay, that was a very long question. Let's do the last one, because it's the creator of the post. Thank you, Coco, for creating the post. I'm gonna close with your question here. So check out this cool video, 17 seconds of here comes the other Rickroll of a simulation I did inside of Blender with Tai Chi elements. So it's a project made with the Tai Chi programming language. Oh, do you know the programming language?
Haven't heard of it before, no.
Oh. Wow. Sand and water simulated in 6 minutes with Tai Chi whip elements in Blender.
Yeah, but it looks pretty new. I guess 2019 it says. SIGGRAPH Asia 2019, so I guess that's a new thing.
Yeah. It's a new type of simulation. Interesting. Like a new solver? I'm not sure. But did you write it or no? Like I did inside of Blender. Okay, no, you did the simulation. Interesting. I wonder, I mean, if they could just... I really think developers should look at the Taichi programming language, which is embedded in Python for simulations. The performance of it is super fast and optimized. In my opinion, it looks perfect for the future of Blender simulations. Well, I think Blender, like when MantaFlow was added, big part of the work was to make the API more agnostic, so you could hook up other systems, if I'm not wrong. So this opens the door to, yeah, getting more options in. Should have a look. If any developer interested in physics wants to have a look, here are the links. I think we are in a good moment to call it a day. It's 6:20 already. I think we are a bit over time, 7 minutes over time. Sorry for taking it of your time, Thomas, and the community.
No worries.
Yeah, sometimes the questions are a bit long. Just maybe it's a better idea to split the questions into comments, because people can vote, and then the most popular questions go up. So yeah. How was it for you? It's the first time you're in the show, by the way.
It was great. It was great. In general, it's great to be back, and it's just nice to get a chance to talk to you and also get the questions from the community. And yeah, I just want to repeat that I'm here now. This is my daily job now, to help new people. So if you want to get started with Blender development, you want to help us, or you have a question, feel free to come to the chat, feel free to come to the forums, and just text me, send me a message, and I will do my best to either help you directly or connect you with the people who can, or point you to documentation and stuff. So please feel free to talk to me, and I will be very happy to work with all of you in the next few months and years, hopefully, and make Blender even better and more welcoming to new developers.
Yes. That's super nice. And yeah, just making clear that this is mainly for developers, not like you're gonna get flooded with like, how do I make a cube? No, the cube comes, it's in Blender already. So, and it's not going anywhere. Some people were saying like, what if Blender deletes the cube for good? No.
No.
One thing that would stay. I mean,
you
maybe
have to delete it yourself.
Well,
that's
replace
like,
it.
you know,
Huh?
You have to delete it yourself. Like, that's the first thing you always do, delete the default cube. So
And add
we
a
will
new
not
one.
take away.
I delete it and add a new one usually. Just in the same place, same name, same dimensions. Great. Okay. Thanks once again for being on the show. Maybe we can drop by next time whenever you have a big another whatever kind of announcement. Feel free to drop by.
I will. Thanks.
Just hanging out here, or come to Amsterdam.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I was just there last week, so
Yeah.
it was really nice to. I met all the people at the Blender Institute and was there for the Sprite Fright premiere. Go take a look if you haven't seen it yet. It's amazing, and it was just nice to connect with everyone again. And I guess I will be there every few months and say hello and connect with the other people in Amsterdam.
That's nice. Good to know that you will be around. And speaking of being around, we are going to do this again next week, same place, same time for the next. Wow, next week is gonna be the penultimo, yeah, the one before the last episode of the year of Blender.Today Live. Well, unless we find someone to continue, but it's gonna be the end of a season finale. Let's do it again. Same week, same time, same next week, same place, same time. For another episode of Blender.Today Live. I don't know if you're gonna get to hear the epic song, Thomas, but it's maybe a good thing because people's ear holes about to be blown out by the epic 5, 4, 3, 2. You don't hear it, no? Okay, that's a good thing. Okay, see you, community.